Yeah, I can just see Lisa McCaffrey tripping mushrooms, wearing like a Jalen Ramsey jersey. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
No, don't take mushrooms and go to a game. No,
Marilyn, I will not do that. Okay.
Welcome to Your Mom Podcast. Your mom's podcast.
This isn't any podcast. This is your mother's podcast.
My mom's podcast.
Nah, dude, she's your mom.
With Ashley Addison and Lisa McCaffrey.
Your mom is a podcast.
Shut up, dude.
If you're having a tough day, you've come to the right place. If you're having a great day, you've also come to the right place. No matter what kind of day you are having, your cup is about to get filled up because we have an absolutely fabulous guest today on Your Mom. So, Lisa, because of that, I'm not going to let you screw around with the nonsense in the open like you usually do. We're going to get right to this, all right?
Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay, but
I'm not saying a word then. Let's go.
No, okay. But there is one thing before we bring in the beautiful Marilyn. Before we get to our guest, I have to ask you about the video that went viral last week. High school football team in Illinois. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. They hold a mom's night, and not like a mom's night where the players honor their moms or give them flowers or make them cards or make them cookies or whatever. Like, this was what a mom's night should be. Moms show up,
full uniform,
head
to toe, pads, everything, taking each other out. It's like a dream come true. I've had mom's night on every team my kids have been on, and we'll play the game. Never were we in pads. I think some moms were doing it in heels. I showed up, as my running shoes and whatnot. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever think to put on pads, and it was gold. I wish I could go back in time and have my kids play in Illinois so I could participate in that. That looked so fun. It looked like a blast.
You could tell it was cathartic too. Like the moms just lining up full speed ahead, drilling their sons. And I think I had a lot of moms reach out.
Well, no, I think they drilled. How about we do this? Before games, you can just make it a homecoming night, like once a year. The moms on your team take out the moms on the other team, before they each just kind of like have tackling drills with each other.
Now you're onto something.
That's
now
when
you're
you'll
onto
see
something.
The energy.
First order of business in the off season: Lisa McCaffrey, full pads, full speed, flattening 100%. Every single one of your sons. It's how we're going to get this podcast to take off. We'd be so popular that HelloFresh wouldn't even be able to afford a sponsorship with us if we did this. That's just what I'm saying. So,
Ashley, and if we ever, in our first fight, I think we should take it out on the field. When we finally get our first fight going, well, we had a few, but not real fights. We get a really heated fight. Let's just throw the pads on, and then that's how we'll solve it.
You name the time and place, sister. Let's go. Okay. I said we weren't going to mess around, and here we are talking about crushing each other in pads. But our guest today, I'm so excited about this. The mom of a former NFL quarterback who is one of the most incredible, interesting, genuine people I've ever met in my life. I worked with him at the Pac-12 Network. We're talking about Jake Plummer, star at ASU in the 90s, played 10 years in the NFL, his first 6 with Arizona, and then became a teammate of Ed McCaffrey's in, was that, 2003?
I believe so. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
He ended up
actually Ed's last year
so they crossed over 1 year.
Memorable. I remember Jake Plummer. I love
everybody
Jake Plummer.
does.
Everybody does. Like literally, who doesn't? If he doesn't, there's something wrong with you. But yeah, he was just like you said, the most genuine. First of all, he was an amazing teammate. I've talked to Ed about it. But I can say, I had just had my 4th boy. I was just so stressed. I'll never forget. Jake Plummer came to my house, picked up my oldest 2, and took them to Boondocks. It's like a little amusement park. And like, I'll never forget, like this star of the football team, like the quarterback of the football team, is picking up my kids and just taking their, not asking for like babysitting money or anything, taking my kids, and they remember it. Christian told me today, he goes, yeah, I remember Max and I got in a fight. I'm like, well, Jake Plummer will never have kids. I'm sure you ended that, but
he didn't ruin him for life because Jake does have kids now. But Lisa, that story is exactly,
I know, yeah, thank God.
I feel like that's just one small example of who Jake Plummer is. He was never, he was a superstar, but he never was. He is the most normal, down-to-earth guy. He walked away from a ton of money in Denver when he decided to retire, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He's now a mushroom farmer in Colorado. Jake the Snake is what they call him. He refers to his mom, Marilyn, as the mama goddess. And we are thrilled to have her on the podcast because here's the deal. If you have given birth to Jake Plummer, then you are officially a mama goddess. And I just have to say, Marilyn, it is great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. With all of our technical problems, I guess we're going now.
We have had a few technical difficulties, but you know what? We're here now and we're together, and that's all that matters. I got to start with
a closer knit group.
I already feel so close to both of you, given what we've gone through in the last 30 minutes. I got to start though, Marilyn. Tell me, did you like Jake the Snake, the nickname? Were you down with that?
Well, he was reading the autobiography of Kenny Stabler, or the biography, one of the two, and his middle brother Eric walked by and said, "That's who you are. You're Jake the Snake." So he was playing baseball and he was on the all-star team at that point in time. So he went up and told him, "When you introduce me as Jake the Snake Plummer." And that's kind of how that all started. And then the funny story, when he went to the Senior Bowl in Alabama, Kenny Stabler was there, and he sent him a picture of himself signed from one snake to another. And then about 2 hours later, he sent him another one. We're like, he has two photos of Kenny from one snake to another. So
I love that because I thought the story that I had heard was that it was a tribute to the professional wrestler Jake the Snake Roberts.
No, Kenny Stabler. He was the snake.
All right. Now I'm glad that we're setting the record straight already.
Yeah. Marilyn, when Jake was here, we went, I don't know, somebody had a party. I think it was a birthday party for him. And Ed and I used to give animals as gifts for birthdays and whatnots to players. Because what do you get an NFL player? They have everything under the sun. So we gave Jake a corn snake, a live corn snake. And come to find out, Jake hates snakes, hates them, as do I. I can relate. And I think he ended up giving it to another player who had kids.
That's a fact. I never heard that story. He's better now. He's a lot better with snakes now because he decided that was kind of silly to be scared of him.
I just kind of love that you and Ed had the balls to buy Jake Plummer a live snake. That takes some gumption. I respect that. Can I say before we jump into this, my favorite memory of Jake Plummer, but obviously when I worked with him, I can have a million memories from how great he was and how down to earth he was and how comfortable he made everybody on the set. But my favorite memory of watching Jake play was in 2005. And obviously I'm a huge Broncos fan. I grew up in Denver. My college boyfriend, who I met at Boston College, was a very obnoxious New England Patriots fan. And I think Tom Brady and the Pats had just won the last 2 Super Bowls. So they were, as all Patriots fans are, very confident and whatever. We go to the game together. He flies out. We go to the game together. And Jake was fantastic. And the Broncos won that game. And I will say it is probably the most gratifying regular season win I have ever witnessed. It was like my favorite Broncos win. They also beat him in the playoffs later that year. But sitting next to Steve, watching Jake Plummer crush the Patriots was just, I will never forget that moment. And I'm thankful to Jake for that. So that's I didn't buy him a live
One
snake,
of my
but I would have.
favorites too.
Yeah.
That was a great
we were
game.
at that game too, as fans.
Were you?
Ed and I, and we brought one of my sons. Yeah. I'll never forget it also. It was a great game.
Oh, it was an awesome game. It was a beautiful day. It was an awesome game. Okay. So we're going to dive into Jake's past, but Marilyn, can we start with what he's doing right now? Like if someone on the street says, "Hey, how's your son? What is Jake doing?" What would you describe his livelihood as now?
Well, his Michael Love mushroom business, he had a friend and they started Umbo, which was to make bars and healthier protein substances than what you can really get. And so from there, this mushroom grow came up. And so he's like, yeah, I'll try that. Well, then, they started growing the medicinal mushrooms and started another company, Michael Love. And the tinctures are great. And one really good thing, I had COVID in June and kind of got the brain fog, after I got over it. And the lion's mane tincture is really helpful for that. And I notice a difference when I don't take it.
Wow.
And so that's a really good thing. Not widely known, but should be, because I think a lot of people that had COVID ended up with that,
the brain fog.
kind of just, it's hard to explain it if you haven't had it. It really is hard to explain.
But it is like a fog.
And people always say, oh, well, you're getting older. And I'm like, this is different than the older memory lapses.
What is this product now? How do you eat them like in a bar? Like, how do you consume the mushrooms, or do you make a shake and drink it?
I just put them in a little cup and then maybe add some of my coffee, because I don't love the taste.
Yeah,
it's not like ooh, this is yummy. It's more like this is kind of medicinal. It's not bad. It's an earthy taste.
Yeah.
But he's very involved in that. He was involved in the, getting Charlotte's Web, CBD, like going out and talking about that, because, marijuana, we don't want anything to do with that. But especially in the NFL, and that now he's into the mushrooms, which we really liked mushrooms back in the day in the 70s. But I think we always took way too many.
The ones back in the 70s, was it the, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but the psilocybin, whatever that one, is that the one that was, does he add that to it as well?
Yes.
That's the hallucinogenic portion. Yeah. That's supposed to be pretty intense. I love it. But they're finding, I know you probably know this. Psilocybin, there you go. You say it right. But they're finding that can really help with depression, alcoholism. It's like they're claiming it could be a cure-all to a lot of mental illnesses. So it's fascinating. I read up on that a lot.
Well, small doses.
Well, right. The micro dosing. Yeah,
not
exactly.
5 mushroom caps at a time.
Right. Not like what you were doing back in the 70s. No.
I realized I am never doing this unless I'm in the mountains, around trees and streams and things that are beautiful, not in town.
Can you tell me your favorite?
Sort of open you up.
I really want to hear, Marilyn, like you're from back in the 70s. Like, tell me your best mushroom story. Like, give me an anecdote from one time when maybe you had 5 caps
or 7.
Or 7 caps.
You want to know just a favorite time of mine in the 70s?
How about this? How about just tell us your best trip you've ever had?
There we go.
Well, we went backpacking up in the mountains, in the White Clouds, and to this lake called China Lake. And Steve and I, their dad, and the 3 boys, and Jake caught his first fish, and he was just this little tiny blonde-haired boy, and he could barely hold it. And we have a picture of it. Steve has a picture of him with that fish on the line, reeling it in, and he was like 3 years old. And that wasn't even his first backpacking trip. His first one was when he was 18 months old. And his dad ended up carrying him in addition to his pack when we walked out. But that's one of my favorite memories, being with the whole family up in the, it was probably a 2-mile hike in, and hiked out in the rain. And that was really fun. And he was this little tiny boy.
So I got to ask
a different type of trip.
I think we're talking about it. Yeah. So were you on mushrooms for this?
Oh, mushroom trip?
I want to hear about your favorite mushroom trip.
I don't have a favorite one, because the last time was not that fun, because we went to the drive-in movie, and it was Clint Eastwood, Hang 'em High and For a Few Dollars More. Midway, very shortly into the first movie, I'm like, I need to leave right now. You don't want to be open psychically and see Clint Eastwood in Hang 'em High. It was awful. And so I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore.
Yeah, not a recommendation. Okay, good.
And one favorite time we went skiing with some friends, and it was a beautiful bluebird day, and that was totally fun. That was
Being out in
that was a
nature, I
good
imagine.
experience. The Hang 'em
Yeah.
High for a few dollars more was not.
No.
But the skiing day, we were so good. We were just such great skiers, and we had such a good time, and went to hot springs afterwards, and that was fun.
Memorable.
That
I love
sounds
it.
so fun. That sounds so fun. I
Memorable.
think, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
We've
awesome.
got pictures, and we were all sun-tanned, and
That was the good life.
Wait,
Yeah.
how
in the
old were you
70s.
then? How old were you then?
probably 28
Okay.
years old, maybe 29.
Were you married then with kids yet, or?
Let me think. Yes, yeah, we had all three. I was a young mom.
Oh wow.
I think you were too.
Yeah, same. I was too. Yeah, especially compared to my friends. Yeah.
And it was kind of fun growing up with them. It was fun growing up because we wanted to be real active and do stuff. And I had wonderful parents that always wanted the kids.
That's
So
great.
we also could drop them off and go do things. We were kind of more free than a lot of people are when they're young and have little kids, because my mom always never said no. And then one year, Steve had kind of quit his job, and we got ski passes at our Logos base in our local ski hill, and we'd drop the kids off and go skiing. And then she started calling in the morning about 8:00. Are you planning to drop the kids off? And I'd say, are we going today? And he'd go, yeah, let's do. Because she was checking to see if we were going skiing. So that was a pretty fun time. Didn't last very long. You had to go back to work, but that it was fun. We loved to ski and bought passes every year when I was a single mom. I mean, the boys went up, a lot of the weekend days when they weren't in school or having a sporting event. They all had mini sporting events. That's my life. I'm a sports watching mom.
Love it.
And now grandma and aunt.
Did you not push them, but did you introduce them to sports? Did you want them to play?
No.
No,
I didn't want them to play football. And I didn't really let my two older ones. I'm like, no, I don't want you to.
Did they all three play football?
They did in high school, yes. Yeah. Eric was a defensive back, and he should have been the quarterback because he has, until Jake was a senior at Arizona State, Eric could still outthrow him with the football. So he was really good at it, but he didn't want it. He didn't want the notoriety of being, or, the pressure of being that person. He wanted to be a defensive back, and he was really good. And he had an offer from a small college in Washington to play football, but when he went to college, but he didn't want to. And Brett played his junior year, and then he broke his ankle.
Oh.
And so when he came back from that, he had to rehab it by doing a lot of running, and he really enjoyed that. So he became a track person. And he actually went to Brown University on a partial track scholarship.
Can I real quick double back on something? So we were talking about, and I think we talk about the stigma that's attached, right? Going back to what Jake is doing now with mushrooms. I think there is, and Jake, when I was talking to him the other day, he said there's like an awakening right now, and that stigma that's been attached to mushrooms for so long, like that's all changing. And there was a big article in the Wall Street Journal this week about psilocybin and the studies showing that it's helping, as Lisa mentioned, all these different things and disorders. But my question for you, Marilyn, do you think that mushrooms would help Lisa enjoy her son's football games more? Because a couple of episodes ago, Lisa talked about how much anxiety she has on game day. So I'm trying to help her. So do you think that some of those tinctures or maybe some bars, like if she just had a little something that might, you don't think that would help her?
Oh, not the psilocybin mushrooms. No, don't do that.
No.
No.
But some of the non-hallucinogenic.
Right. Yes, I think the lion's mane would really help you. And
Okay.
Jake said, I said, can Lisa come see your mushroom grow? And he said, absolutely. And then he said, McCaff has my number.
Love it. Love it. I'm on.
So,
I'm calling him right
yes.
now. I'm texting him right now. Absolutely. Yes.
We were talking
Love it.
about doing our next episode live from the mushroom farm.
I want to take a visit out there. I want to see it.
That would be good. It's kind of just a big warehouse with all these substrate, which is a word that I never knew, but it's the medium that they grow the mushrooms in. And they're so cool. I got to go out there and pick some, and you have to go underneath, and you have these big, beautiful mushrooms that you're picking, and it's very fun. It's real fun, but the tinctures are really strong and good. And I do notice, like I said, when I take the lion's mane, it's noticeable to me that it helps. And that's the brain one, that kind of the neurons.
Okay. And then there's the reishi. Is that a relaxant? Is that the reishi mushroom? I was trying
yes.
That's
yes.
the more relaxed. So if I did a combination of, can you combine them? Is that legal? Will I get in trouble? Will I get kicked out?
Oh yeah, no. I take them all. I made a mistake one time, and I took some cordyceps and some lion's mane in the evening.
Yep. Oh no!
It took me a long time to go to sleep, and the next morning I told Jake, and he goes, "Oh, you don't ever take those at night." And I'm like,
okay, good.
I found that out.
I need the recipe for
they give you energy.
Energy. Okay, I'll take that in the morning, but not the day of a game. I need something to calm me down the day of a game, so I don't freak out. So that's the lion's mane and the I think the reishi, right? The reishi. Yeah.
We're gonna have Jake come up with like a special Lisa McCaffrey concoction.
I take turkey tail, cordyceps, and lion's mane in the morning. And then I take the reishi at night, the evening, before I go to bed.
I love it. I love it.
So I don't know. That might be Jake he knows a little bit more about this. I'm learning. I'm just in the learning phase.
I think we're going to have him on the podcast, and I think we're going to have to go to his mushroom farm. I think that's just what's going to have to happen, because I agree. My brother-in-law, it would be a great podcast. And I'll just last thing on this. I'd say my brother-in-law, who is a former Marine Raider and served in Afghanistan and has been through some really, horrible things, as anyone who has served in the war and served the military has. But he says that microdosing has helped like rewire and heal his brain in a way that nothing else has even come close to. And in talking to Jake about it, and there's a great article, by the way, in The Athletic that they just wrote on Jake the other week, to go look that up if you haven't Googled it, that talks about why, the magic of mushrooms. And it's really interesting. I think there's an awakening going on right now. Not that mushrooms are new to humans, but they're rediscovering them in a way that isn't eating 7 mushroom caps and going to watch Clint Eastwood. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. So, Marilyn.
Well, the war on drugs was just really, they weren't able to do research, and plants, all plants really, but particular plants have a lot of properties that are helpful to, for people in certain circumstances. And I think Jake knows a guy, I don't know him, I haven't met him, but he knows, that takes, soldiers with PTSD that are feeling suicidal, and he takes them to Mexico where it's legal to do this. And so far it's not legal. And I think maybe Colorado's trying to change that. I don't know the status of that. But I think it's maybe going to be on a ballot or something to make, individual use of psilocybin legal. But when something's illegal, there's a lot of people that don't want to get involved in have anything to do with that.
Right. Where do you get the mushrooms, like the lion's mane? How could I access that as a lay person?
Mycolove, MyColove, and I said .com, and I was talking to my insurance lady the other day, and she went on and she just Googled it, then she got it from Google, because she said that didn't work on her phone, but that's what it is. And
I'll find it.
And I haven't been on the website because Jake just sends them to me.
Okay.
We got to get on the
totally
Jake
up.
mailing program. Whatever
Thanks.
Jake's mama bundle
The
is, like
cat has
Lisa and
his
I want
number.
to get down on
That's
that.
what he told him. I had a bobblehead of Ed and Jake. Did you know there was one?
I did, yes.
And I
I've
think
seen that.
I gave that to Jake, but I was thinking about that when you were going to be on. I'm like, I had a bobblehead of those two.
I remember Ed looking quite distorted as a bobblehead. Whoever made that, it was pretty comical. Yeah. I think we still have one stored away somewhere, but that's actually pretty neat. And now here we are. Look at this. But did you know that Jake Plummer was Santa for my kids one year as well? He came to our house dressed as Santa, and I asked Dylan. By the way, Ashley, a couple episodes ago, I claimed that Dylan was my least favorite. Well, he's moved up in the pecking order. He is
Good
now my
for
favorite.
him.
I had
Wow.
coffee with him yesterday. He calls me. So if anything, this podcast did, it has like made us have a stronger relationship because he didn't listen to it, but everybody called him and was like, Dylan, you got to call your mom. You got to call your mom. He's like, what? I talk to her every now and then. He's like, no, you got to call her more often. So yesterday we were having coffee at a coffee shop in Greeley. And I asked, do you remember Jake Plummer? I go, do you remember when he was Santa? He goes, no, I just thought Santa really came to our house one year. and it was Jake, full costume. It was the best. Oh my gosh.
Did you have to tell Dylan that Santa doesn't exist?
Fantastic.
Did you, was yesterday the day that you told Dylan that Santa
I finally
doesn't
told him
exist?
at age 23.
How do you have a favorite? I couldn't have a favorite.
Marilyn, I really, truly don't tell him this. I don't, but it's the one way I can get them motivated. So right now, Luke's my least favorite because he doesn't call me. He hasn't called me in 2 days and I've called him. We've texted, but that's how I judge. And it changes literally by the minute, just so you know. So it's silly. And they know I don't really mean
that. Wouldn't work for me.
Yeah. With your 3. I know.
Really?
That wouldn't work for me.
Why not?
If I said I had a favorite because they called me, the other ones would not call just because I said that. That would not work.
You have to know what motivates your children too. I think that's important.
Right.
People used to say to me, how's your son? And I just always say, which one? I have 3. Of course they met Jake because he's the one that people knew about, the person at the copy place that I went to or whatever, how's your son? Which one?
How was that dynamic? Because Marilyn, I think that's something that we've uncovered as we've gone through this, and interviewed moms. And usually and Lisa and I have talked about this with Christian, when you have multiple children who are all successful in their own right, like your 2 older boys are incredible, from all accounts, are incredible people and dads and very successful in their own lives. But you have one who's a superstar who everybody knows.
They are.
How do you, what's that family dynamic like? How did you maneuver that as the mom?
His brothers were, they felt kind of partially responsible for his success because they were always working with him and having him throw the football. I remember once he came home from track and Eric's like, or maybe it was track or baseball. And Eric's like, come on, let's go throw the football. Jake's like, I'm tired. I don't want to, after they ate dinner. And he's like, you can't be tired. If you want to go on to the next level, you got to work through that. And Jake's like, all right. They went out and threw the football in the road. Awesome. And I just remember, Eric says, I don't remember saying that. And I said, well, I do, because, they were just like, you've got to be the best, and so they felt kind of responsible for some of his success. I'm not responsible, but
right,
but
that
they helped him with that.
They had a plan it. Yeah.
Oh, so sweet and so proud of him.
That's great.
That they, I was proud of them for never being jealous of him. They were very supportive, and they were all, Eric was University of Montana and Brett was at Brown and Jake was still home. And I told them they could call each other whenever they wanted. And sometimes my phone bill would be kind of amazingly high. But I just wanted them to be able to stay in touch with each other. This was back when you still paid for long distance.
Right.
Which now you just have your cell phone. You can call anytime, which is great.
FaceTime, everything.
I wanted them to talk to each other, and, they stayed close that way. And yeah, they were real supportive. We went to a game in Arizona one time, and they were supportive, but they also didn't, like, oh, Jake, you're so great. Eric was wearing a Larry Sanders jersey that he'd cut the sleeves off of. Oh. And so, after the game, we all went to the family area. They had an area out in the parking lot for the families to wait for the players to come, where they had drinks and different things. And Eric comes to the family area, and the security's like, you can't come in here. And Eric's like, well, my brother is a player. And he says, who's your brother? And he's like, Jake Plummer. And he said, why do you have a Larry Sanders jersey on? He's like, oh, I'm a fan of his too. And they had to come get me to, say, yes, this is my son. He can come in, because they thought he was just some random fan trying to get in the family area.
I love that.
That's great. That's so funny. I always
Eric.
thought it would be really funny when Ed was playing to wear the DB that he had to go up against. I thought that would maybe that would rile Ed up. I never did it. I never had the kahunas to do it, but I always thought, oh, maybe that'll really motivate him to have a good game this game. But yeah, I never did
that. Just says everything. Like, Lisa, I really wish, I'm surprised that you never did that. I guess probably.
No, don't do that.
Can you imagine, actually, it's funny to think about, but then walking in to Mile High with the opposing jersey
with the Raiders, whoever the DB
God.
for the Raiders was. Yeah.
That would be
Dale Carter jersey on Kansas City.
Whoever was directing those broadcasts, then they find they're like, Lisa McCaffrey's
Nobody would
wearing.
understand that humor, Lisa.
Right. I don't think so. I think I would get in trouble. So
I would love it.
I thought about it too with Christian too. Wearing, I don't know.
You still have time.
He has to go up against. I still have a little bit of time. I know. Hey, why not?
If we're trying different things.
I know. I couldn't do it. It would create a rift and make them really mad at me. Thus, I never did it. Don't think I ever will. But I thought it was a funny concept.
I mean, can you just imagine?
It is a funny concept.
Yeah, I can just see Lisa McCaffrey tripping mushrooms, wearing a Jalen Ramsey jersey. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
No, don't take mushrooms and go to a game. No,
Marilyn, I will not do that. Okay.
Marilyn keeps being actually, you are misinterpreting my advice.
Or watch a Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah, those are the two things we're not doing. Okay.
Lions
love shoes are cute. I would like to know if that helps you. I would like, if you take those, if you try them and go to, see if that helps you be calmer.
Absolutely. No, I'm literally calling Jake as soon as we're off. I'm calling Jake and having him send me some lion's mane and reishi for sure. And I'm going to try that concoction before next Saturday though. Can you get it to me that fast?
What now? Is that the game at Northern Arizona?
No, next Saturday starts college. Not Christian yet. It starts. So University of Northern Colorado is their opener. And then my other son, Luke, plays out at Rice and they open against USC. So I'm going to have to double down on the reishi that day.
Oh, two players playing? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, there's a whole Lisa's got. You wonder why she's wound so tight on game days, Marilyn. She's got a husband who's the head coach, the oldest son who's the offensive coordinator at UNC. Her third oldest son is the quarterback at UNC, and then Luke, baby Luke, sweet baby angel Luke, is a receiver at Rice and will play at USC. Luke. So there's that's not before Christian even starts his season officially. So that's why she needs the double dose of whatever the mama bundle is.
Okay, I'm getting nervous thinking about it. I want to know. Oh, help.
You said something to me, Marilyn, when we were on the phone the other day about Jake's senior year at ASU. And for those of our listeners who aren't familiar, it was the most special, season that ASU's had. They go undefeated. It was Jake's senior year, total breakout year. They played in the Rose Bowl for the national championship, came this close to winning the Natty. But you said that was the most stress that you ever felt. So how did you handle that season? Because there were so many unbelievable games that season.
Well, and when they played USC, double overtime, and it would be 4th down and 4 yards, or, and here's this going on to, be in the Rose Bowl is on the line right here. And somehow or other they get the first down. You're like, oh my God. Sometimes I just have to sit down and everybody be standing up, and I just sit down for a minute and like, I don't know if I can watch this. And I ate Rolaids. I had a pack of Rolaids that I would keep eating because, it was so important, there was so much on the line, for that. So that's what I did. But, I've since learned to just, set your intention that they're going to be safe and not be injured. And that's what you want to focus on.
Absolutely.
Focus on that. They're safe. They won't, because you don't want to put the worry out there into the ethers when they're playing. You want to just, if you start to, then just say they're safe. They're safe. Yeah. And they're going to walk off the field and
Yes. Good advice. Good advice. Thank you. I know
it
that's
is great advice.
So pulling back on my sons, Christian and Max, when Jake took them to Boondoggles, they got in a fight. And I asked Christian, what were you guys fighting about? And he said, oh, Mom, we would compete all the time. We were, playing putt-putt, and, I was beating him or he was beating me and we were mad. Did your boys compete? Did they fight and compete with each other? Because they're all great athletes. Yes. Okay. I feel better.
Constantly, but they never let Jake win. He had to win on his own. We were playing wiffle ball one time when we lived up in the mountains, and with some friends, they were over there playing wiffle ball, and if they were pitching, if my friends they were older, they were 3 brothers that were older, and they'd pitch him a nice little pitch that he could hit, but Brad or Eric would throw it really hard, and say, hey, you guys, come on. And he goes, hey, if he wants to play, he's got to be able to compete.
Yeah. Well,
so that was their attitude.
That's funny you said that, because I asked Ed when he played with him, and it was Ed's last year, and Ed himself was struggling with some health issues because he had broke his leg 2 years prior. So he's trying to come back from that. So blah, 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 whatever. But he said what he remembers about Jake is that he'd be like really loose and goofy. And then all of a sudden game time, he would flip a switch, and he goes, he was the most fierce competitor, one of the most fierce competitors he's ever played with, and just flipped it and was like incredibly competitive. And was just, that's what part of the reason that what made him so great on the field, besides his athletic ability, which Ed said was just off the chart too. And I don't know if this is just a natural thing in your family, but your other son who ran the 1500 or whatever, he said Jake had more stamina than anybody. So you're talking about all those double overtime games. Jake had so much stamina. I mean, maybe living in altitude, I don't know, but he said, he had it all. He could compete like a fiend. His stamina was incredible, and he was a great player. So he was just, he was a blast to watch. Looking back, he was so much fun and fun for Ed to play with, even though it was only 1 year. So just a stud out there. So gosh, yeah, kudos to you.
Lisa, I'm glad you told that story, because Marilyn, I'm curious for you. I was talking to one of his former teammates, Gus Farwell, who's a fantastic guy. He was the backup behind Jake at ASU for a few years, but he described Jake the same way. He said he's one of the fiercest competitors that he's ever met, but he's so goofy. And he had the ability to go to like a laser focus in an instant. And he said it was hard for some guys to follow that, because, you go from like having a good time, everything's good, until zoom, you're there, you are like in it. And he was saying, I'd be curious where that came from. And I'm curious too. Where did you see that from Jake? The ability to be this fun-loving, down-to-earth, sweet, salt-of-the-earth guy, but then in an instant, flip the switch and be totally laser-focused on what had to happen.
Well, I think part of that was his brothers, and always, being the underdog when he was little, and having to try really hard to stay in the game even,
Yeah.
And he had to be real competitive, and they constantly, they had a game, we have a sand, driveway, because we live kind of in the foothills, and they'd go out and draw a court and play one bounce. Like it could bounce only one time. You had to get it back. I mean, they were always playing something, and it was always a competition between them. And they didn't usually get mad. If he got mad, they would really ridicule him for, come on, it's a game, like you don't get mad when you're playing a game. And I think that helped him when he went on to the next levels, and they always kept him humble. They didn't
That's
let
why
him
you
get
have
a
brothers
big
and
head.
siblings.
That's
Yep.
exactly. That's the best part of siblings is they will keep you humble.
But I think that ability to do that, he had that when he was little.
Yeah.
Like when he was like in 5th grade and was playing, and they had a really great coach in the league when he was in the 5th grade. And I didn't want him to play. He had to beg me to let him join. So I'm just like, he was not beefy in any stretch. He was a real thin, lean kid. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, Mom, we play tackle football on the playground at school, and we don't even have pads. So I'm going to be safer playing on a team. So I finally said, okay. And he had so much fun, and he had a coach, and I mean, they did things like they even did flea flickers, their little team. And the dads would just crack up when they would do these plays, because he was really good. And that's when they took some footage of him. And there's a show called Under the Helmet that the NFL did, I don't know, years ago. I don't even remember what year, but they took some of that footage of Jake leaping over a bunch of kids with the football to make the first down. And then they showed Walter Payton doing the same thing.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
They just compared him to Walter Payton. I thought that is an honor.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Was one of his favorite players. Steve Grogan, Walter Payton, and I can't remember the other one, but he thought he'd be a running back. That was his plan, to be a running back. And I look at him, and I could have said, look at yourself. I'd say, well, you better eat healthy. My mom was kind of a health nut. We had tofu in the 60s before it was even a thing in the stores, and she was a vegetarian, but she was very focused on nutrition. And so I was too, so, we always ate really well. And I think, that was kind of strong bones, and their ability to, we didn't eat a lot of sugar. I kept, just homemade stuff, cookies and stuff like that. But I don't know if that's why they were just healthy and he had stamina, or just, their dad's family were pretty, their dad, he didn't compete in sports because he was kind of a Fonzie type guy when he was in high school. But he was probably the most coordinated person I have ever known. He could jump. He was just extremely coordinated, and I think all the boys got that from him. And nutrition for me, so there you are.
That's great. That sounds like the recipe for success. That's a great start. Yeah, that's fantastic. At what age did you think that you knew Jake had a potential to be in the NFL or make it in sports as a quarterback, or what? When did you see that he was exceptional?
Well, I always knew he was good, but he was, small and thin. And I really didn't, that was his dream. And from like 3rd grade on, that was what he wrote his papers about. And that's what he talked about. And I really didn't think it was going to happen, but I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to put a damper on his dream. This is his dream. And I just say, well, you better work really hard and eat a lot of vegetables and be really healthy if that's what you want to do. And as he got older, he was, he was really good at being a quarterback. I mean, that was not what he wanted to be. He wanted to be a running back.
Wow.
And he joined this team. His friends, they both talked me into letting him join this little team. And so then his friend was the quarterback, and he threw a pass to Jake, and Jake went out and caught it, and then he threw it back. And his coach told me later, he like, hold on, he just threw a spiral. He just threw a perfect spiral. And he's like, come here, Jake. Casey, you go out for a pass. and he threw a perfect spiral, and he's like, I'm switching positions here. And Jake's like, no, Coach, I don't want to be the quarterback because that's Casey's job. And he's like, listen, you don't tell the coach what you want. You do what the coach says. And he's like, okay, he learned that at a really young age. Do what the coach says, and he always did that, I think. I think he always listened to the coach because, I had an understanding, and I was listening to Ryan's Leafs mom, and you need more than just talent and ability and size to be successful. The higher you go, and that,
right?
It's attitude and
perseverance.
A lot of things go into it. Yeah. Some luck, a little bit of luck, and the ability to stay focused on what you want,
right?
And be a team player. Not everyone's a team player,
right?
And Jake definitely was. His team was really important to him.
Well, and Marilyn, I think it's obvious that his teammates loved him. I think it's obvious that his teammates loved him. A special relationship that he had with someone that I think most everybody knows, whether you're a football fan or not, was Pat Tillman. They were teammates at ASU. They also played in the NFL together for the Cardinals. And most people know the story, but after 9/11, Tillman left the NFL, enlisted in the Army, and 2 years later, he was killed by friendly fire. I think he was 27 years old. So I'd love to ask you, but before we, start to wrap
awful.
up. Yeah. What do you remember first about Pat and Jake's relationship? And then how did Pat's death impact your son?
Well, they were real close friends. And Jake always said, he was, like after Pat was killed, he said, I wanted to see what he was going to do because he was such an amazing guy. He said he would have done something really great, Mom. But he didn't say anything either way about him joining the Army. I did. I tried really hard to talk him out of it. Jake had a camp here in the summer, and Pat would come to that. And so I got to know him pretty well. And he felt like he needed to give back, that he'd had so much success and so many good things happen to him. And he was from a military family. I knew his parents, and, they had 3 boys, and he was the middle boy. And I had 3 boys, and his mom wrote a book, I think, Boots on the Ground at Dawn or something like that. And I tried to read it. I've tried to read it multiple times. I can't. I just get to a point in the book where it's like, it's just too emotional to continue to read, thinking about what they went through and what a big hole. I think I could relate to that. What one of my sons being gone would just be a big giant hole in your family. So Pat was an amazing guy.
How did Jake handle when he passed away? How did Jake handle it? What did you see from him?
He was really devastated, and we all kind of were really devastated, but he made a sticker with Pat's number and he put it on his helmet and then wore it one of the games, and they said, no, you can't wear this on your helmet. And he didn't want to take it off. And so they were going to fine him $25,000. If he wore it again, he was going to pay $25 and go up, then $50, then $100, and then $200. And so, his agents Jake, let's try to figure out a different way to spend that money than to do it in a fine. And then some Wall Street, Jake told me this last night. He said some guy on Wall Street called him and said, I'll pay that fine. Don't you take that sticker off.
Oh,
And
wow.
then all the guys, I know, it became a really huge deal. And that wasn't really ever reported out that it was. And then the soldiers or the Air Force guys in Colorado Springs, they started calling and saying, we'll chip in, we'll pay these fines. And it was like there was not going to be a good end to this. So his agent negotiated, and they did a Pat Tillman Day where they honored Pat at one of the Denver Broncos games. And then Jake put the sticker inside his helmet, and then he decided to grow his hair and his beard to honor Pat. And that was when he had the real long hair and the big beard. And he was kind of the only one. Now everybody has weird hair and beards, and it's not a big thing. But then it was kind of unusual. When he did it, it was kind of an unusual thing. But that was his way to honor Pat, is in his own way. He just wouldn't cut his hair or his beard till the season ended. And so he kind of won in his own way, and they honored Pat at one of the games. They put his picture up, and I think they left his number up there all season, up by the screen.
Yeah.
And
I think they still do honor him to this day. They have most teams have a game or whatnot. I don't know. They usually do and they honor him at some point in the season, which is nice. It's a nice tradition to honor his sacrifice, because man, what a stud.
Jake stays in touch with his brothers. I think they talk periodically. His younger brother Richard particularly, they're pretty close with each other. So yeah, that was hard. That was a tough thing to go through.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I think, obviously the ultimate loss and tragedy, you talk about the hole that it would leave. It's every parent's worst nightmare is to lose a child. Period, end of statement. But I'd probably say the next thing that you walk through with your kids is that they're going to lose people that are close to them in their lives, and being there for them and walking through that sadness with them is all part of being a parent as well. I want to hear a little bit about your background, Marilyn. I know, you mentioned your mom, Hazel, I think was her name. And Jake has said that she was a huge influence on him. What was she like? And do you see some of her in Jake or in your boys?
She was a huge football fan of all things. And she was a pretty typical church lady. She was very religious and strict, and she was a teacher. And my sister and brother and I, we all laugh because she was such a good teacher that she taught us to think independently. And we all decided we weren't religious. and that was kind of disturbing to her because, that was what, her whole life was like that. And she took, she would take the kids to church with her, to the little, to the kid church. And she was just really loving and supportive, and education was really important to her as a teacher. And she was the best teacher I've ever seen. She knew how. I remember once they got in an argument or a fight, and she's like, did you take that from him? And one of the kids said no, and she knew that he had. And she's like, well, instead of saying you're lying, you don't get, I probably would have said, don't lie. And instead she said, well, I know that's the way you wish it would have happened, but we know what really happened. So it's best to tell the truth. And I'm like, okay. I'm like,
that's okay. That's better.
Dealt with
way
that.
better than I would have done.
I know, like that's a lie. And she was just, she knew how to deal with kids, and they spent a lot of time with her. And I was making cookies and I wouldn't have an egg. I'm like, oh man, Jake, they lived across the road, You know,
wow.
we live kind of up above, there's a canal, and we lived up, and they lived across the road. So it was really awesome. You know, if I was late getting home or gone and they were hungry, they'd run down to grandma's, and she always had something to give them. And it was really good for my parents too, because they got to see the kids way more than they would have if they'd lived far, you know, somewhere else.
Right.
And they went down there at least once a day. And you know, when Eric, my middle son, kind of went through a rebellious time, you know, when he'd get mad, he'd go down there and she'd go, "Are you," you know, and she'd talk him out of it. And it was just it was nice, you know, to have my parents that close. And it was great for the kids too. And she was just she loved John Elway.
Well, who didn't? Who didn't love John Elway? But now
One time
you're
I have to tell you this, one time at her church, they were all talking about what they could do better in their lives, you know, in their class. And she's like, "Well, I could watch less TV." And the teacher said, "You watch soap operas, Mrs. Davis?" And she's like, "Oh no, football." That's what she watched. She watched football. And she would never just watch football though. She'd peel apples to make a pie or an applesauce, or she'd mend, or I mean, she could never just sit there because that was just, you know, idle.
Yeah,
so she always was
same.
You
I
know,
get
would
that.
do something, but she knew the game too. She knew, you know, and she'd go, "He wasn't offsides," or, you know, she would comment on the calls they made. And, you know, at that point in time, I didn't know much about it because I really learned football when Jake played because it was slow. You know, like you could see what was happening with the little kids, you know, like, and I learned the game then. And thank goodness, because I sure did watch a lot of it over the years.
A lot of hours watching football, a lot of Rolaids. I feel like I have 1,000 more questions for you, Marilyn, but I want to be respectful of your time, and we've already kept you long. And of course, our technical difficulties didn't help add to this. But we usually end with our debacle. Yes, but we're working through it. It's good. We're here together now. We typically end these interviews with, you know, 2 questions. Number 1 being, what would you do differently if you could go back and do it all again? Is there anything that you would change or do differently as a mom?
You know, I thought about that, and I couldn't really think. I thought, well, maybe I would try to be a little more organized, because, you know, oftentimes it was kind of chaotic in our house with 3 boys and all their sports and everything that was going on, trying to keep everybody fed and, you know, but I don't think I would do anything differently. We had a really great time together, you know, like it would have been better if we could have, you know, if their dad and I had been able to stay together, but that just wasn't possible. And so we made the most of it. And, you know, they had a pretty good growing up. You know, they, in fact, I don't know what I did with my phone, but I asked my son, Eric, I said, "What was the best thing about me being your mom?" And he just wrote me this beautiful, he said, you always supported us in everything we wanted to do. And you were there for us if we needed something, and you fixed meals for us every night. And, you know, it was just it was better said than I'm saying it because he's a writer, but
that has to make you feel good that you were appreciated.
Yes, it made me feel really good. And yeah, and I guess, you know, when you get older, you notice that. At the time when you're a kid, you don't think my mom's supporting me, but I did. I went to all their games that I could go to, and if they wanted to do something that was a positive thing, I tried really hard to make that happen for them. Oh, he said, I always had new cleats and new basketball shoes.
Well, and you were doing it, Marilyn, as a single mom.
With support from my parents and my sister, and she had 4 kids and they spent a lot of time with us. So we had all of the kids did a lot of things together, and that was really, they were really close to their cousins, and I wanted that. I wanted them to be close to each other. I always said what I really hoped for them when they grew up, that they would be people that I wanted to hang out with and be friends with.
Love that. I love it. Yes.
Yeah, that was my goal, and that happened. So
you won.
I don't know that I would change anything. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think,
that's a beautiful way to look at it.
We had fun. We had a lot of fun.
That is. Okay, so you heard so Eric wrote you something that was beautiful, right? Well, your youngest baby boy, I asked him, and he went one step further and sent me a video. So I'm going to play this for you. This is, I asked Jake, I said, what's the best thing about having Marilyn as your mom?
Hey, Mom. What I love the most about you, it's hard to put into words, but first of all, is that you birthed me into this wonderful world we live in. You also have shown me how to care and love for others, as you have always had an open door and an open heart and gave so much of yourself to those around you, especially me and my brothers, your 3 kids. You are so expansive and all-inclusive, and your laugh is contagious. You make a badass oatmeal cookie. You always answer the phone, and you've put us first and a lot of other people first your whole life. So thanks for all the yummy meals, all the great advice, and for always being there to support and love me like a mama goddess would. I love you and always will.
Oh, that makes me cry. That's awesome.
It's hard to live up to. That was very nice.
That was sweet. That says it all. I want an oatmeal cookie.
I was just going to say, can you give us your oatmeal cookie
What a
recipe?
great boy.
Yeah. You
He's
raised
the
a
best.
great family, it sounds like, and particular. I know Jake, I can attest to him, man. Whatever you did it right. So kudos.
They're kind of all like that, and it's so much fun when we're all together, which isn't often anymore,
Right.
and the grandkids are pretty awesome too. So, I'm happy that we all like each other so much. I think that makes a big difference in a family. We never had big fights at Thanksgiving. Like everybody was so happy to see each other that we just had a good time, and I'm appreciative of that, because that wasn't just me, that was everyone in the family, but my brother, my sister, we always we're just happy to be together. So
That's what it's all about.
That was
That's
very
what it's
nice.
all about. Well, and I just want to say last thing, and this was from, I mentioned Gus Farwell earlier, but his former teammate and a good friend of his, when he was telling me about you and I was asking him some questions, he just said, all 3 of those boys, despite their, for lack of a better word, manly exteriors, all had and still have this warm, caring side, which isn't common in most men. And he said that I'm convinced that comes from her. So I agree. Now that we've gotten a chance to connect with you, that's where it starts. It always starts with the mama goddesses. So thank you for being generous with your time. And I hope that we get to hang out in person one day, whether it's on Jake's mushroom farm or at a game or next time we're in Idaho.
Me too.
Let's get together.
I want a date at the mushroom farm with oatmeal cookies. Deal?
Yes.
Okay, that can happen.
I mean, that
Next
literally
time
to me is my heaven.
We'll have Jake give me a call, and you guys can come to the mushroom farm, and
Boom.
I'll bring
in.
cookies.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you.
The
in
best
advance. I can't
ending to
wait.
an interview of all time. Marilyn, thank you. You're the best. Okay, I just need to say, love that woman, number 1. Number 2, I don't think anybody truly knows, and you can probably tell by some of the quality issues, the ridiculous number of technical difficulties that we had for that. And she was still fabulous.
Yeah.
So I'm just thankful to her that we made it through. But one of the things that was hilarious, and I'm assuming this was a technical difficulty, but when she started talking about the best trip that she's ever been on, and we were asking about what mushroom trip she'd ever been on, and she's telling the story of Jake catching his first fish, and we're both sitting there going, "Wait, so you
when does she do mushrooms? Wait, she has her 3 little kids." And then wait, where is this going? And then she literally described the most euphoric, beautiful trip that she took with her kids and her family without mushrooms. And you and I are like, no, but when did you take the mushrooms? Come on.
No, but back to the mushrooms. But I was dying laughing because I'm like, man, maybe, okay, well, things turned out pretty well, and they turned out pretty well. So maybe I need to go my next camping trip with my kids, that's right. Just like pack a bunch of that up, and let's, they're going to catch some big fish. Collins he's going to come out, he's going to have a fish like this big. I'm going to be like, what is going on? Hey, I got to ask you one thing, and I meant to, because we didn't have time off the top to get into this, but it happened since the last podcast we did. So I just wanted to get your mama's reaction. Did I see that Christian got in a little dust up with some Pats players during a preseason practice?
Ashley, my children would never fight.
No.
So you need to calm down right there and worry about your backyard and stop insulting my kids, because they would not get in fights. Christian would never fight anyone. That
was a media propaganda, false reporting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Here you go. Yes. Oh, shocking. They have a team on team, everybody full pads practice. Really? Like, it would be weird if they didn't get in a fight. Everybody that's had a team on team week-long practice, there's been fights. Come on.
There's been fights. You saw what happened with, and at least he wasn't swinging his helmet around like Aaron Donald. Like there's another level of that. So, okay, good. But did you tell,
it's inevitable. That I need to talk to Roger Goodell about this, because I'm not sure this is the safest thing for these players to be doing. We take all these safety precautions, but yet we're going to go full pads in the middle of the day. Heated grown men against grown men head to head, and come on,
when they've only been going against each other for however many months. I could see that. I think you've got Roger Goodell on speed dial, right? You've got Roger Goodell.
I'm gonna shoot him a text real quick and
send him a note. Tell him what you think about these practices.
Yes, to be honest, he got in a dust up. Let's just call it that. Just a little dust up.
A little dust up.
Yeah. Okay. So I grounded him. He's grounded took his phone away and grounded him. He's fine.
For like a week? Is that like a 2-week grounding, or?
It's until the season starts. He needs to calm down a little. He needs to simmer down a bit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I hope I hope you told Olivia so that she doesn't just think that he's ghosting her by not replying to any of her texts.
Yeah. She knows where the phone is. She will not tell him where his phone is. Nope. It's hidden.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, here's the deal. This weekend, I'm not sure if you're going to have your lion's mane in time for Saturday, but I hope that you do, because I want to report back next week if that's the case. And Rishi.
And my Rishi.
And your Rishi. Extra Rishi on top.
The 2 mushrooms that are the lion's mane is really good for your brain. So it supposedly makes you think clear. And then the Rishi is good for remaining calm. It's supposed to calm your brain, calm your limbic system or your nervous system. So
I'm really excited for you, Lisa. I'm excited for you this season.
Thank you.
I think this is going to be a whole new game, literally a whole new game. Northern Colorado at home on Saturday, right? And then Luke makes his debut as a wide receiver in the Coliseum, Rice and USC.
Correct. Rice against USC. Yeah.
That game is on the Pac-12 network, by the way. Yep. Yogi Roth and Ted Robinson are on the call.
Yep.
I will not be there.
And where are you?
I will be in studio. It's my 1 week in studio. We're starting off the first week in studio because we have 5 games.
You hate Luke. I knew it.
I didn't want to. I felt like I was going to be too nervous. I couldn't be there and watch him without being on mushrooms. And I don't know that I'm able to. I don't know how the Pac-12 would feel about me doing shows on mushrooms. I'll ask them. It's always worth asking.
See what they say. Maybe they're okay with it. Who knows?
Is there anything that you want to give Ted and Yogi a scouting report on Luke that would be helpful for the broadcast to know?
Gosh, let's see, Luke. Well, to be honest, I've seen him play receiver in high school. Okay. So I don't know.
Did that go pretty good
between high school and now? But yeah, it went well. Yeah, Dylan was his quarterback, so that was kind of fun. Yeah, they had a beautiful touchdown. Dylan's senior year in the state championship. Oh, and that was really neat. They have a really nice little handshake. They have a great handshake. Oh my gosh, if something good happens, he's your man don't take those cameras off him, because he had a great handshake with Dylan. So there you go.
That's the news. That's the nugget that they need. There you go. This is gonna be good, and I can't wait for him to score a touchdown and do some ridiculous, awesome handshake. And I'm sure he's the kind of player that would immediately hand the ball to the ref.
Oh yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I don't know. He hasn't scored them. Yeah, so we'll see. What does he do? I don't know. He is. I will say this about him. He's emotional. He's a very emotional in a good way. He's really up and excited and loves it. Has a passion for the game. So he's a fun. For me, he's a fun player to watch, especially when things are going well. Not so much when things aren't going well, but when things are going well, he's very, very passionate and fun and very up. So I
wonder where he gets that from.
We'll see.
I don't know anyone like that.
I have no idea. That's so weird. Have you met Ed?
It's just
not from Ed.
Lisa, I love you. Marilyn,
you're the best.
We love you. And our listeners, we freaking really love you. Thank you guys for, as always, tuning in, and we'll be back with much more from your mom next week. Good luck to the boys this weekend, Lisa.
Thank you.